Hey, this is Mike, and in today's video, I want to talk a little bit about the SNES again. So in my last video, I was talking about, some of the games I played on there and why it's, my absolute favorite console of all time. But, there's so many great games on there, in my opinion. I couldn't possibly cover everything in just that one video. And after I finished that video, there's, about a day later, one game came to mind that didn't get any mention, and I feel like I should bring that up today because, at least for me, when I was a kid, this game was a pretty big deal. Growing up, I never had a Sega Genesis. My friends have had Sega Genesis, and, the very few times I, had the chance to go over and play it, a lot of the times we play Sonic the Hedgehog, and okay, that was my exposure to Sonic the Hedgehog. I played that a few times, and it was good. It was okay. I'm honestly not the biggest fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, but I appreciate it. I appreciate it for what it is, and I get why fans like it. It's just not necessarily my type of, platformer, game. I much prefer Mario or Mega Man or even the next one I'm about to bring up. So, this next game that I'm going to mention was my Sonic the Hedgehog on SNES. And it was called... The game that I played was called Sparkster, but the series is actually called Rocket Knight. So Rocket Knight / Sparkster, and he's like another anthropomorphic kind of animal looking. He's a possum instead of a hedgehog, and he's got kind of this blue. So blue, there's the blue knight armor on, and he has a sword, and he has I guess a jetpack kind of on his back, which gives him big bursts of speed for a short amount of time. Unlike Sonic, who can pretty much just run forever, at high speeds. So there's a difference there, and I'm not comparing, the two in terms of who's better. Well, clearly Sonic would be the best, but this isn't that kind of video. My point is, this was more my speed in a game, just the way it played, how the platforming plays out, it just felt like a mix of, it felt like almost a mix of Mega Man and, Sonic together, which was, which felt just great to me. Some of the reasons I liked it was, I felt that, each stage that you go through felt, very unique. None of them felt the same. And I feel like each one kind of brought its own mechanics, sometimes in a very minor way, or sometimes in a big way. There was this one stage that was just, every time I was dreading it going up to it, only because it was just anxiety inducing, because there was I think you're in this sub or something, and I guess the sub is kind of sinking, and there's just water shooting out at you, and if the water happens to catch you, you die. And that's kind of another connection to the Sonic games. For the most anxiety inducing part is involving water with Sonic, right? When you're in the water and it does that friggin' Sonic drowns. Terrifying, man. When you're a kid, it's just you're oh shit, I gotta get out of here. And you can't always get out of there. It just fucking, yeah, dude, it's that. But I think that's one of the reasons that I was kind of tiptoeing away from Sonic. It was just, that was really scary for me. But yeah. In this game, it was just pretty quick. If you get caught, you just die. Boom. There's no countdown or anything like that, and you just start the stage over or whatever. But it was still very anxiety inducing because it was pretty tough until you got the flow of it. I'd say, like, if it's your first time going to it and you play, you're probably gonna die at least once, and then figure it out from there. I think so, maybe, or I just suck. But and then there's so many other stages, like getting towards like near the end of it. There's like this cool like bouncy stage, and I like bouncy stages. I kind of like it's not everyone's favorite, but from Mega Man 7, like the Spring Man stage, I like that one quite a bit. I know there are a lot of players who say that's probably one of the worst stages, but I don't know. I just like bouncing mechanics. I think they're fun. And then the one directly after that, so you're doing that stage, and you're like coming into kind of like the final boss in a way, or at least you think it's the final boss. And he's like kind of like this game's Shadow the Hedgehog. He looks like the possum guy. I'll just call him Sparkster because that was the name of the game. He kind of looks like Sparkster. I think his name was Axel or something. And he had like dark armor, and he looked pretty badass. He had a lot of like similar powers. And he took this princess chick that you're trying to like save. And so like at the end of this stage, you're facing off against him like mano a mano, like just you and your swords, fighting. And then after you beat him there, somehow he gets the upper hand again, and then you go into another stage. So it's not the end. And then this new stage is completely different from anything in the entire game. It basically becomes like he puts on this super jetpack where you could just fly forever, kind of, and you're basically now doing like a side-scrolling, like an auto-scrolling shoot-'em-up, where you're flying through space, dodging, like kind of like a bullet hell type stage. You're dodging people shooting at you, like these airships shooting at you. You gotta take them out and everything. And then when you get to the very end of it, there's like a boxing match. Like you get into this robot. So like the Axel guy who got away, he has like this robot with with these boxing gloves, and then suddenly Sparkster goes into his own, and you guys just freaking duke it out. You start punching at each other. It's pretty crazy, and that is where my experience with this game ends, because probably skill issue. That fight was hard, and if you lose, you gotta go back to the beginning of the stage. And I don't remember exactly how the game goes. I don't remember if there's like only a limited amount of continues before you have to start the whole game over. I'm pretty sure that is the case. Or like if you get to 0 lives or something, it's like game over. You're done. And that's probably what happened to me, because I never actually finished that game. It was only recently, prior to making this video, that I, was kind of looking into playthrough footage of Sparkster, and I was like, holy shit, because I thought when I beat that, like, I was so close that I thought that was the end. That was going to be the end of the game. I thought that was the final fight, but it's not. There's actually quite a bit of game after that I didn't even realize. So I didn't even get to see everything that this game has to offer, and I still feel it's awesome. I think it's a really, really solid game. Definitely worth a try, in my opinion. And I would play it today. I still have it. I'm sure this game, if my SNES works, I can still play this game. I know I have it somewhere. That is one of those games where, like I've mentioned in the previous video, there are some games I will never get rid of, even though I've sold some really popular ones back in the day. Like, I'll never get rid of Sparkster for sure. Or maybe I would, only because they have now, like I saw on Nintendo Switch, the eShop, they have like a Rocket Knight collection, which includes Sparkster in it, and Rocket Knight Adventures, which I'm not sure what that is. It looks very similar to Sparkster, just a little bit different. So there's that. I could buy that and then be good. But I don't know. I gotta keep something for nostalgia's sake. I already got rid of Mega Man X1, which was probably my most nostalgic on that system. I gotta keep something. You know, that and UN Squadron, which, by the way, spoiler, UN Squadron may be my next video. That is gonna be another hidden gem that I feel like I need to expand on. So yeah, that pretty much covers everything. You know, this game is just really cool. It just, you know, the music's great. Again, SNES music is just, you know, almost always really good anyway. But it's just, you know, it just has like a really cool look to it. You know, the gameplay's solid. Story, whatever. You know, there's no story. There's really no dialogue in this game at all. You're just, you know, they build the story around scenes. You know, so you just see stuff happen in front of you, and you know you can figure out what's going on. It's so very bare bones, very simple story, but whatever. Who cares? I mean, honestly, that's kind of like how Sonic, you know, at least in the early games, played out, right? There was no dialogue. It's just, you know, stuff happens. You see it happen in front of you, and you get where the story's going. So, yeah, you know, a lot of parallels there to Sonic. But, you know, this for sure is my pick. You know, this one is my Sonic. Anyway, I guess you can consider this kind of like a hidden gem, like mini hidden gem kind of series of videos that I'm doing here, you know, for nostalgia's sake. What are some hidden gems on some older consoles that you guys think, you know, maybe aren't, you know, very appreciated, and that should be, you know, given a chance? So, you know, put your comments down there. We suck at speed running. Have a good day. Peace.